Hello, all, and welcome. My name is Maria Laura Celso. I am your host for today's CCH Happy Hour session featuring Tami Herndon, who will be sharing us about grow your practice by turning your expertise into influence and how writing consumer focused homeopathy articles can build credibility and visibility. The purpose of this CCH Happy Hours is to provide homeopaths with knowledge and skills to advance their practice. The happy hours are hosted by the PR committee of the Council for Homeopathic Certification. The CHC is almost entirely volunteer run, and serving as a volunteer on a board committee like I am is a great way to support our profession and earn CEUs. As you may know, the mission of the CHC is to advance the homeopathic profession by certifying individuals who meet and maintain a recognized standard of professional and ethical competence in classical homeopathy, and to assist the public choosing appropriately qualified homeopaths. We envision a healthcare system that encompasses certified classical homeopathic practitioners accessible to all. These quarterly happy hour sessions are just one part of how we fulfill our mission. Before I introduce our speaker, a friendly reminder to keep your microphones muted unless you are asking a question. You can ask questions throughout the session either by piping in, raising hands, or putting them in the chat, or you can hold your questions until the end. The session is being recorded and will be posted to the CHC website. Now I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight, Tami Herndon, a certified classical homeopath, professional communication specialist, NCH Director of Outreach, and editor-in-chief of Homeopathy Today magazine, will talk about how you can share your knowledge with your community by writing for homeopathic publications. Having been part of the homeopathy community for many years, with experience at both the CHC and the NCH, Tami especially enjoys working with authors to polish their articles, clarify their messages, and make homeopathy more accessible to readers. So I give you, Tami, the honors.
Thank you, Laura. I am thrilled to be here with my fellow CHC certificates and just being part of this community. It's been a while, guys. There's several of you on here that I know and remember from my time at the CHC. And also, I see several authors that have written for Homeopathy Today magazine. So today we're focusing on growing your practice by turning your expertise into influence. And so bottom line, this is a great way to build trust, expand your reach, and inspire action. So specifically today, we'll focus on turning your expertise into lasting influence, lasting being the key word, using your case notes to create powerful stories, and getting published, which is a lot easier than you might think. So let's start here, turning your expertise into lasting influence. In your homeopathy practice, how many times have you answered questions like, what is homeopathy? How does it work? Why isn't there one remedy for my particular condition? You answered kindly and completely. You educate. You help the client understand what you'll be doing and why. And all of that is valuable expertise. Unfortunately, that consultation has to come to an end, and that valuable expertise never leaves the room. However, with an article, that expertise can have a lot of mileage. So you think about all the people that an article could reach. Most clients don't get up in the morning and go, hey, I think today I'm going to find a homeopath and make an appointment. It's a good bit of a journey, and your article can really help individuals along this path. They first search, learn a little bit about homeopathy, or maybe even before that, natural health. And then as they get more information, they begin to trust. So much so that there may be some confidence, and they schedule an appointment with you, which will eventually lead to their healing. But again, that article can play a big role. So people schedule consults with you because they trust you. And then once you write your article in a magazine or an online publication, you can use it in a variety of ways. And it's content that is yours. And it's amazing how much you can extract and expand from just a section of your article. So, okay, here's where we were. So when we use our case notes to create a powerful story, we've already got them. They're sitting in our case files right now. So the question is, how do you pick them? Is there like an algorithm or something like that? And honestly, no. If you think about the stories that you like to anonymously share with your colleagues, or cases that you learned a lot from, or cases that really demonstrated, wow, that really demonstrated minimum dose, or whatever homeopathic principle or concept that you'd like to, share with other people, those make great articles because the topic is kind of already centrally there. But when you're looking at these cases, there's always two parts to the story. You've got your clinical part, which is their medical health history, their symptoms, your remedy choice, what you did, and how they turned out, and their follow-up. And that's all well and good. But when someone is reading a story, what they're really needing to focus on and find themselves in that story is the human side of things. What did their condition prevent them from doing in life? And now that they've had the remedy, how is their life better or more enriched or broader or expanded? That's where people can really take your expertise, which shows up in your clinical process. They can kind of translate that expertise into how could this benefit me or somebody that I love? So, and if you've got questions, there's definitely going to be time at the end. So I encourage you, before you hop right into your writing, is to, instead of asking, what do I want my readers to know? Ask them, what do I want my readers to do after they read my article? And that really helps you fine tune. Maybe you want them to understand that not every person with a condition is going to take the same remedy. Or maybe it's somebody who's just curious about homeopathy and you hope that they will continue learning and investigating thanks to your article. Or maybe it's someone that just has questions and they want to get their questions answered. When you fine tune or narrow your purpose or the focus of your article, it becomes so much easier for you. Now, once you start collecting your information, you've determined your focus. Here's the three questions that you must answer with your writing, because we're in the digital age, folks. And nobody has an attention span past, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. And so why should I care translates to why should I stop scrolling and spend my precious time that I perceive that I don't have in your article? Or why should I trust you? There's so much bad information out on the internet nowadays. Why should I trust this writer? And then what should I do next? So that's the what next. So people want to know, why should I even stop and read this? Is this trustworthy? And what next? Which is super important. So how do you answer these questions? Why should I care? Why should I trust you? And what should I do next? Sorry, technical difficulties. Here's three approaches that I use when I'm writing, and I really like them because they're simple and they kind of get you to your point a lot faster. So plain language, which we'll talk about in a little bit, helps make it more understandable. Telling them how makes your expertise front and center in the article, which is what you're showcasing through the storytelling. And then keeping the readers in the story so that they can relate to it and see themselves or their family member or their loved one or their friend getting help from homeopathy, because that is where you'll see the conversions, to use a digital term, or the calls into your inbox for new clients. There we go. Right. Plain language is actually a communication approach. It was first used by the federal government to help people find what they're looking for and understand government documents. But it has since, and that was back in the 70s, but it has since spread out because it has so many applications, because it does. It makes what a person is looking to learn from your article really easy to find. It helps them easily understand it, and it makes it easy to use. Now, plain language doesn't dumb down your expertise. It just makes your expertise more accessible. And I want to make sure that I am including the specifics. So again, sorry for the technical difficulty, but I can't see my notes. Um, you have to know that your readers are intelligent, but they may not have the same background in homeopathy or healthcare or medicine that you do. So keeping that in mind, you want to use some words that are familiar. If they are available, if there are familiar words, use those. Be specific rather than vague. We don't want people popping out of your article to go in Google to try to understand what you just said. And then you want to make sure that people don't have to stop in the middle of your article and go, wait, what? Wait, what is she talking about here? And so with that, let me just show you an easy example of what I'm talking about. From a consumer standpoint, which version is easier to understand? My client presented with hypertension and insomnia. Or my client had high blood pressure and had trouble falling asleep. Right there, they can plug in and go, gosh, my mom can't fall asleep. I need to probably read this article. Or my dad has high blood pressure, or my husband, or whatever. Right there, you have decreased the barrier between the practitioner and the reader, and you've already won that first battle of engaging them. They're like, okay, I can get this. I can understand it. Now, plain language is this whole thing. And so I wrote a lot about it in the Homeopathy Today author guide on the NCH website. So perhaps Yashi can put that link in the chat in case any of you are interested in reading more about it, because I did go into nice specifics about it, kind of comparing and contrasting without it and with it. And so it's kind of a really nice thing to read. Okay. The second approach to making sure that people are getting your work is tell them how. All right. So instead of just saying, I took this case and here's how it proceeded and these were the symptoms, let them know what symptoms that caught your attention and why. What topics or words that the client used that piqued your interest and helped guide your remedy search. Include them in your thinking, because as authors, it's our job to fill the gaps between what we know and what our readers are trying to understand. And so my poor graphic design, you see right there, connect the dots. That's what we're doing. We're connecting the dots. So this bumblebee over here needs its dots connected to fully show that it is a bee. I gave a little nod to Apis because at the time our temperatures are over 100 in Arkansas right now, and I was feeling pretty Apis-y at that time. So that's why I chose that. All right, so you include them in the symptoms that interested you and really turned the case. You're thinking the remedy and why it rose to the top over others. So a comparison of, I chose this one instead of this one, or if this person had needed this remedy, I would have expected them to be really hot all the time and they're chilly. Things like that to just feed the readers a little bit so that they're learning along the way. And then, of course, the healing story follows that. The final approach is keeping the readers in the story, because stories inspire, stories create trust, and they're remembered. So when we're talking about a topic like homeopathy that we're passionate about, I am, you are, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Sometimes we can get really, really, really into our information. We might throw in some philosophy, some extra materia medica. Hey, there's some great research I could put into here. All of that is wonderful unless you somehow lose your client in all of that. So getting back to the client. So anytime you're writing and you're like, wait, where am I going? Think about, I've got to get back to the client, because when the client is the star of the show, then you know your reader is following the story. Now, if you have great information and want to include it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with history or research or anything like that. Somehow tie it into your story. You know, I was very comfortable in recommending this remedy because according to this research, this would help this type of patient or client, depending on your designation. That helps the reader know, wow, well, this is a really important fact, rather than, research shows that blah, blah, blah. So whenever you add that background information, bring the readers back to the individual, because really facts educate and stories are remembered. So they might forget what remedies you compared and contrasted. They might remember a few things that you said, but I guarantee you they're going to remember the mother who couldn't sleep but finally could, the child who was able to participate in life better, and the person who was able to enjoy their life differently. That's the stories that they're going to keep within them and share with others, and that's what's going to bring them into your practice. So now, here's the part that makes a lot of practitioners nervous. And I appreciate all of you who have already written for Homeopathy Today magazine, because it does. It takes courage to put your stuff out there, to put it under the scrutiny of someone else, and then to share it with a big population. But honestly, it's really much easier than you think. And I don't want you to have to think about yourself as a writer, because you have things that are worth publishing, even if you've never written something past, your college essay or whatever. Bottom line, you already have something important in the article because you have something valuable to say. And your expertise is definitely worth sharing. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't think we can have enough healing stories out in the world these days. And that's on us to share what we know and provide hope to others through homeopathy. Your first article does not have to start as an article. In fact, that's a really hard way to go about it, unless you've already talked with an editor or somebody and have a specific focus for your article. For example, Dr. Christy Fleming. She's a great article writer for Homeopathy Today, and I needed an article for our Women's Health magazine about female dogs and their birthing process because we were doing an all female focused issue. And so there she had a very specific way to approach her article. And thankfully, she wrote it out for me really quickly. But in most cases, when you're thinking about your cases and you're looking at your case notes and you're choosing your story, focusing on that story, looking at the picture here, there was a guy who's a young athlete. Something happened, but then homeopathy helped reestablish his health, his overall resilience. And now he's back to competing when he was told he would never, run again, high jump again, or whatever. That's the kind of story that will hook your future clients into reading and start establishing that trust. And then, of course, all the while you're thinking about what audience that you might want to focus on. And so for our discussion, we're focusing more on the consumers who are looking for maybe not even homeopathy, maybe they're just looking for a natural way to support their health. And so there's consumers. There's also, you may be writing articles for practitioners in some of the journals that are out there, or for the general homeopathy community that maybe has more knowledge than the consumers. They're newbies to this. The homeopathy community has been on board for several years, so you don't have to define everything, but you do have to make sure that you include everyone, because everyone will be at varying stages of their learning. So finding your audience is another way to further narrow. So first, you found your case notes and you narrowed down to a specific, what do I want my reader to do after reading my article? Now that generic reader has become a real person. They're a consumer, a practitioner, a homeopathy community member, or, the list is endless. Now, there are tons. There are tons of opportunities out there for you to share your work. However, I'm most familiar with my role at Homeopathy Today. I was a longtime reader of Homeopathy Today, and I've really enjoyed my time. I've been there for 5 years. That's one of my roles at NCH. And I'm super passionate about homeopathy. And so it's really fun to be able to have that, quote, as my job. So I'm going to use it as an example, but most of the stuff I talk about, you can, apply it to most any other publication that's out there. So at Homeopathy Today, we're especially interested in those stories that make homeopathy more understandable or relatable and useful to consumers, because we think of ourselves as trying to make the case for homeopathy. People have a lot of different choices right now in the holistic and natural health world. And we want them to think, wow, homeopathy is the end all, or at least it can be part of my comprehensive plan. And I want to learn more. That's the whole role of Homeopathy Today. And some of the things that we've been discussing, finding that compelling case and explaining your reasoning, using accessible language, keeping the individual at the center, all of those things are what help you highlight your clinical experience. So if you want to think about it, it kind of goes in backwards. Instead of putting your clinical experience at the front, the clinical experience just naturally shines through your story, through some of the methods that we've discussed today. So the process of writing an article for most any publication starts with an idea. Hey, I've looked at my case notes. I found an interesting story. I know who I want to write for. I have this idea of how to develop the article. And so from there, you write a draft and then you submit it usually by a predetermined deadline. Now, in our particular publication, drafts can come in many forms. And so the expectation is not, a perfect that you're turning it into your academic grader. It is, have I written in a way that my story is understandable? And if not, then there are editors on staff to help you through that process. And so usually it's a nice collaborative back and forth in figuring out how is the best way that we can get this information across to our readers. And so a quick commercial on this side for Homeopathy Today, in case you've never read it or have not written for it. It's 100% homeopathy, which is cool in my opinion. Very passionate. We really try to make it be like a practical, hands-on type of of a publication, so that all of our readers, when they leave, they've got something that they can go and try that day. Oh, my son has a sunburn. Here's a remedy list for that, because it's summer right now, and we usually try to include things like that. As an author, what's nice is that you always own your own content and your own case. But once it is designed and edited into the format that goes into the magazine, then you co-own it with NCH/Homeopathy Today. And you are welcome to reprint it, repost it, put it on your website, present from it, whatever. The professionally designed and edited article is now yours, and you will get a PDF to use after we're all done with the process. Just in case, if you want to become a member of NCH, you can get the magazine mailed to your mailbox by if you join by August 21st, and you are able to get a lot of extra access to the Homeopathy Today digital archives, which are great for researching and finding out, what did Miranda Castro think about measles? Or what did Amy Rothenberg think about constipation? Some of those big homeopaths in our community, their work and their ideas, they are preserved in our archives. We've also got webinars. And so in case you're not a member, or if you're thinking about upgrading to a professional membership, CCHs receive 50% off your first year as a new professional member. And you can email info@homeopathycenter.org to let us know if you're interested in that. We can share more information. So just a quick note about editors. again, like I said, you're turning your work in, it feels like school, and that you're going to be graded. But no, the editor is not there to take away your voice at all. It's actually the editors are there to help your voice come through more clearly so that your readers get what you're trying to say. And so they may notice a place where you've unconsciously skipped a step. As practitioners, we think so quickly and we're so used to all of this type of processing. Okay, they were sick, they got this and they did this, and then we move on. And when we talk amongst ourselves with colleagues, we fill in the gaps for each other. But when you're talking to and writing for consumer readers, you must fill in those gaps. And so a lot of times the editors will say, hey, you know what? Let's add just a little bit of information. Can you help me with this? Or they might want to have a little bit more description about a technical term that's really important, that it's in there. Christy always does a really nice job of helping me understand all the veterinary technical stuff so that we can translate it into consumer lingo. And here's one thing that a lot of writers, authors really like. A lot of times we are looking to make sure that what you have put forward as the most important point of your research, of your article, sometimes something that you just mentioned in passing actually is so amazingly impactful to the consumer community that the editors will work with you to maybe switch things around and bring that forward so that the readers can immediately see it and get the message that you're trying to say. So, bottom line, it's a very collaborative process and it's a lot of fun. Okay. Here's the good part. After you publish an article, it goes to work for you. Future clients find you. Current clients are like, wow, look at this article. I'm going to show my mom, my cousin, my aunt, my uncle, who I've been trying to get to try homeopathy. Now they're really going to have some evidence. Colleagues will know your work better. Followers can engage with you more on a different level. Groups may ask you to present what you've written about. Other publications can discover you, and you might even start that book chapter. So the after publication process is quite rewarding. And once you're done with that first article, it's like, I'm just going to sit back and wait for it to arrive in my mailbox. So that's really exciting. Sorry, I've lost my cursor. But the current publication, again, is not the finish line. So let's just imagine someday you're in a consultation, you've got a new client sitting in front of you, and they say, hey, you know what? I read your article and it really helped me understand homeopathy. And that's why I'm here, or that's why I'm calling to make an appointment. So that's huge. That's amazing. And that's about what this whole thing is focusing on. Turning your expertise into influence. Right there, you became an influencer. Minus the Amazon clothes and the cameras and things like that online. So I'm going to just stop right here and talk about that all of us has expertise. You know, doesn't matter if it's your first day in practice or you've been at it for 20 plus years. You got expertise of some sort. And I would just like to say, I don't know. I just think that we have an opportunity, whether it's in Homeopathy Today or another magazine or another online, or if you've got your own campaign going in your social media, to be brave and be courageous and share what you know, because you never know who is out there that needs to hear exactly what you have to share. So I encourage you to think about expanding your teaching and your educating and answering those questions every single day in your practice. I encourage you to think about expanding them beyond your practice walls. And again, there's our email, info@homeopathycenter.org. We'd love to collaborate with you. And it would be so much fun to bring forth a very professionally designed and edited article. And so at this point, Yashi, do you have any questions that are out there right now? Because I've got a little bit of extra content, for afterwards. So whatever you would like to do.
So we could open it up to people if they have, there's nothing in the chat box. I put in the information that you'd given us, but we
Okay.
can open it up. I've put everybody on the screen now. So if, people can feel free to unmute themselves and talk to you if they have any questions. Uh, Everybody, hello. Thank you so much for being here. And please go ahead. Here's your chance to ask Tami any burning questions, and then we could give her more time if she has other information to share with us.
While you're thinking, I'll just say that, writing is probably one of the low points on people's fun thing to do list. I happen to like it. I wrote my first play when I was 5. My parents were having friends over for dinner, 5 bears and a fairy. There were my 2 brothers and their friends, and I was the fairy, of course. I cast myself in that role. And so I've always really enjoyed, in fact, I feel like I communicate better when I'm, well, now typing, but back then it was, writing with an instrument. And so I truly can attest to the fact that when you go to your case notes and dig out your stories and decide on what you want to say and who you want to say it to, that it can be a really quick write on paper. Thank you for nodding there, Christy.
I can't even I don't know what I think my case histories are interesting, but I don't know like what other people would think was interesting or helpful, and so I wouldn't even know which case to start with or
Well,
anything.
for Homeopathy Today, we invite you just to send an email. Hey, I've got case A, B, and C. What do you think about this? And a lot of times we're already thinking, and we use a word called packaging. So if you've got kind of a jumble of case notes and it's a really successful and interesting story, a lot of times we'll package it. Perhaps you've got several cases of a similar, let's just say you see a lot of folks with autoimmune conditions. Perhaps 2 or 3 of those case vignettes can come together in a feature where there's also good information about autoimmune. And you do not have to be an expert or medically trained to write about a topic, because
Okay.
if you've read the Homeopathy Today, any of the articles, you'll see that there are many people who are like myself, what I consider myself a lay homeopath. I'm not medically licensed. And so, but we back it all with research. I worked with an author, and she had over time discovered all these things that were helping her clients. And I'm like, that's great. You're not medically trained. We cannot say these things until we back them up. And we found great research out there, so that's all it takes. There is so much natural research out on PubMed, that's available to the public. That's all we do. We cite it and reference it. And so yeah, we can definitely help engage in a conversation with you about that.
Okay.
In our author guidelines that she gave you the link for, it shows the different kinds of columns and features that we have in the magazine. So that sometimes is a great way to get started. Like you'll see how the topics are, or what the focus of the column is. And like, gosh, one of them is there's a remedy for that. Perhaps you have had a lot of experience with UTIs or something, and you've kind of curated your own list of favorite UTI remedies. A story can be built around that. In that author guide, I would encourage you to read it if you are contemplating writing. We do have a couple of things. NCH, along with many of the other organizations in the homeopathy community, adhere to sort of the group PR focus, where we are positively promoting homeopathy. So we typically do not include cases that are focused on COVID or other pandemic or epidemic. And we do not include cases where the simillimum is a no-sode. that's really hard, especially with our consumer focus, that's really hard to unpack in a way that's understandable and not scary, you
So
know.
not a nosode and not an epidemic or a pandemic.
Yes.
Okay.
But anything else, but if it's long COVID symptoms or something like that, we can just refer to it after, it just cannot be still, we have to tiptoe around. It just can't be, during COVID, we use these 5 remedies and things like that. But if someone, never well since cases, yeah, those are really great because, our population is mostly comprised of never well since something. There's so many somethings out there.
And so basically, what we're tiptoeing around is not wanting to look like we're practicing medicine without a license.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if it is if it's a medically licensed homeopath, then yes, we can say that. But for homeopaths who are not medically licensed, then yeah, we just stick to it. But there's plenty of your expertise that shines through. It's just we just work around those topics specifically.
Here, Mariana Sullivan, she wrote that the hardest thing for her is to find a good topic that will interest people and that already doesn't have a lot of information written about. Like, well, it's all about the same, finding a good topic and making people, like read that, like interest.
Right. So here's a trick. Look at what's relevant in the news right now. We've just been through the lettuce bug, Talk about, you don't have to say for the lettuce bug, take this remedy. Just talk about digestive disorders and how effective homeopathy can be. Or it's back to school season, or it's cough and cold season, things that readers can relate to and go, well, I've really been thinking about that, or I've really been struggling with that. This is a solution to a problem that I have in my life. So those are ways to package, again, information. And as homeopaths, we think, oh gosh, here I am writing about arnica and ledum or arsenicum again. That is still foreign language to most consumers, and it is very exciting. And if you think again what I talked about our digital age and capturing people's attention, you really don't have to worry about, oh, we've already mentioned arnica before. Now, in our magazine, we try not to have, 4 articles in a row about the musculoskeletal system and, sprains and things like that. So if somebody presents an article, I might just say, hey, this is awesome. Do you mind if we save it for a future issue? We just had an article on digestion last issue, but this is really important what you're talking about. So maybe we can put it forward a couple of issues.
Great. And Felipe Flores says that he's been thinking on writing about his journey as a foreign homeopath, trying to fit and opening his practice here in the USA and all the obstacles and ways to do it. So that must be another, well, I'm in that part also,
Yes. And
yeah.
when you look in that author guide, you'll see that one of our columns is called Homeopathy in Practice. And so we have homeopathy in practice, homeopathy at home. There's a remedy for that, homeopathy in history, homeopathy advocacy in action. So there's all kinds of places that we can slot an article. And specifically for that idea, that would probably land in the homeopathy in practice. Because, if you are struggling with something as a practitioner, others are too. There's got to be more people out there. And so we would love to engage with you about that topic and just see how we can, for that column specifically, homeopathy in practice, either it is a practice-oriented topic like this, like getting the practice started, or it is a case and what you did with it and how, kind of like we talked about before. But we usually try to write it in such a way that even a consumer who's not a practitioner can look at it and kind of bird's eye view of what goes on in the homeopath's office. And so it's an inclusive article as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Great.
Love to talk with you.
Well, then I also have something from Richa Bhatia, and it says that I have started using a lot of tissue salts and flowers,
Flower
flower essence
essences.
in the practice.
Buck flower, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, with good success. Is that something that I can write about, which is not as strictly about homeopathy remedy and case study?
Yes, we have a healthy living column, which is where we invite practitioners who are using something alongside homeopathy to support their clients. In this column, we've had people write about yoga. It's been several years since someone wrote about Bach flower essences. We have an article about nutrition and eating coming out in our upcoming fall issue. So absolutely, yeah. If you're finding that you are using those alongside your homeopathy, absolutely, that would be a great article.
So just a quick question about the flower essence. So I typically would give my clients a homeopathic remedy, and alongside, very, very often, I include a personalized flower essence combination. So if I'm writing an article on flower essence, do I kind of then break it down into different stories and see and just say these are all the different situations where the flower essence can be used, or is it more about a short story about one case study?
Oh no, you can put as many little case vignettes as
Okay.
fit comfortably and not overwhelm the reader. So
Okay.
yes, and that would be a great way to demonstrate Bach flower is if you give, because when you include, again, back to that client, that's who needs to be the star of your article. And so yeah, Bach flower essence and all the different ones and what they can address and how to use them, that's great information. But what really steals the show and keeps the interest are those little case vignettes. And so, and you'll see in that author guidelines, the approximate number of words. Each of those columns have different links. And so one day when NCH raises more money, we're going to grow the magazine. Right now, we're limited to the number of pages that we have. And so sometimes when I am editing, I do have to, cut something for space, but we always make sure that your message still rings true, just with fewer words.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Someone has a question or something that they would like to say? Well, for me, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
I do have just a tiny little bit of content about using AI
Perfect.
to help with the writing. So it's yeah, because I've had questions before. So NCH does not disallow using HI, but I encourage people to use it as like a writing assistant because it can help you get started. Like you might have an idea and you can throw a bunch of words into your program and see an outline. If you're a visual person, that can help you get started, or it can help you organize and create a logical flow, or perhaps clarify. Instead of going to thesaurus.com 50 times, perhaps you can use AI to simplify jargon and improve the readability. Polish, suggest titles, transitions, and alternate wording. I put that there, but then I'm going to go into the pitfalls. So just know that AI can be very confident sounding, yet very wrong. So every single word that comes out of using AI needs to be verified. And an easy way, because we've started getting articles that are clearly have been, written on an AI platform, and you'll find sentences that sound amazing. And then you reread them and you're like, well, it didn't say anything. And I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying, honestly, it did not say anything. So look for empty sentences and things like that. It can also flatten your voice. I mean, we want to hear your authentic voice, however that sounds. We don't want it to all be uniform, streamlined sounding voice. So use your own personality. It might also add things that you didn't provide. So make sure you double check for that. You can make everything sound generic. And above all, do not put any proprietary information into an AI platform, because then it becomes, it's into the public. And so, of course, with client information, you would never want to include that. So does anybody have any questions about AI? I am certainly not an expert, but it's out there now. And while it can be a very helpful tool, on the other hand, it can be, it can be really messy in an article in this particular topic that we're addressing.
Well, we have some questions and some
Okay.
topics, for instance, from Sarabjit Singh, a topic on how to write how anemia affects the cause of cataract at old age. That's a topic mentioned.
Okay. Okay. Are you going to list them out, or you want me to address them each
No,
one?
yeah, that's one topic.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So okay. That's excellent. And that's very clinically oriented. So we would turn that around in a way that would focus on maintaining good vision throughout the years, or something like that. Yes, we would have the clinical information. It would be backed up by research, because given that topic, I'm pretty sure that you've got some research on that. But then also we would want to, again, go back to the client. And if you don't have a particular client, find one in your case notes. And of course, all the names that you see in our magazine, they're all made up names. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That is, madam, in case of patient where red blood RBCs are affected with the distorted shape and size.
So I'm sorry, it's unclear, but did you say something about the red blood cells?
With distorted shape and size.
Okay, so that's kind of a very specific topic. So if you're interested in writing, I would love for you to email me about that, just so that I can see what your, kind of what your aim is in sharing that case. And then we can figure out a way to present it to consumers that it does not overwhelm, and it actually educates. Because again, if one person is dealing with a condition, there are many others. And so that's why I guess my intention every quarter when I put together a magazine is that, may the just right people read these words and find the information that they've been seeking. So.
Okay, that's all right.
Thank you.
And one last question from Mariana Sullivan, saying, what do we need to ask from clients to have permission to use a case or part of their case?
Yes. And so whatever form that you would like to use, but you do need to have permission. Okay. Even if you anonymize the case, still, if there are aspects of the case, and a lot of times you do not want to anonymize it in a way that it takes away the complete case. And so a very unique case would be hard to make it anonymous. So you need to get permission from the person, say, hey, we're going to be delving into this case. Your name will not be involved. There will be no contact information.
Okay, perfect. Well, if there is no other questions.
I'm just assuming that would be written permission, and it would be very clear, like complete transparency, yes. And you would have it in writing. Okay. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's interesting that when I was executive director at the CHC, there was a form that was on file that was to get permission for people, for you to use the cases in your, in working towards your certification. Sorry, stumbling over my words. So I that's been years, but maybe there is something on file that can be, helpful with that. So.
Thank you for your time and for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. And I look forward to hearing from all of you who would like to write an article. It really is a fun process. And then it's really cool when it's published. You're like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. We have a great designer, and so the articles always turn out really nicely.
Thank you so
and
much.
okay, a big thing I forgot, and if it's still the same in the recertification handbook that I worked on so many years ago, I believe it's 6 category 1 CEUs to write an article in Homeopathy Today. So that's a big incentive right there.
That's interesting.
And also I know that NASH accepts writing articles, and I've written CEU letters for several different organizations.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I've
to our
enjoyed my
speaker,
time.
Tami. You're amazing, and we appreciate you sharing your time and knowledge with us. It is a great help in advancing the homeopathic profession. And thank you everyone for attending. We hope to see you all at future CHC Happy Hours. And in the meantime, remember to like and follow us on the social media, Instagram, Facebook. We're posting everything there. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.